Director Girding, I want to discuss the SEC's proposed rule. As you know, the SEC's proposed rule requires publicly traded firms to disclose to investors the climate related risks they face and the greenhouse gas emissions their company is responsible for, including emissions from up and down the company's value chain, which is now known as Scope 3 emissions. And these metrics will be critical in understanding carbon intensive companies' risk exposure and helping investors allocate capital efficiently and prioritize their engagement. However, I believe that they could have a significantly costly and adverse effect on thousands of small farmers and ranchers. And I understand the rule only applies to publicly traded companies and does not create any disclosure obligation for small private companies. So I'm very concerned about this and the potential of indirect impact that this rule could have on small farmers and ranchers. So my first question to you is, do you see a single scenario where a large publicly traded company that falls under Scope 3 still chooses to seek data from small agriculture suppliers in order to meet Scope 3 reporting requirements?
Congressman, the proposed climate risk disclosure rule includes a number of provisions that would allow companies that would be required to disclose Scope 3 emissions to use assumptions, methodologies, and other tools other than getting disclosures from suppliers and customers. That being said, we have received a large number of comments expressing the very concerns that you are expressing today, and we are carefully considering those concerns and those comments as we formulate any recommendation to the Commission.
Let me ask you this. What about large publicly traded banks and other financial institutions who provide loans to small family farmers and ranchers? Could Scope 3 requirements have an unintended consequence on the amount of loans or investment activity being made by these banks?
Congressman, the requirement that you're mentioning in the proposed rule includes a number of provisions, including a materiality qualifier that would potentially limit the number and scope of disclosure requirements that companies would have to make here. We are aware that banks have already developed methodologies for making these kinds of disclosure requirements and assumptions about disclosure requirements.
Well, let me ask you this. This is the pièce de résistance of my opposition. The SEC received a record 15,000 public comments on the rule, 15,000, surpassing the most comments garnered by any single proposal in the history of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Chairman Gensler has recently hinted at potential adjustments to Scope 3. Can you provide some daylight to us as to what these adjustments could be?
Congressman, I can't make any commitment to what a future commission action would look like. I will note, again, that we've received comments expressing a lot of the concerns that you've mentioned today, and we are very carefully considering those comments and taking them very, very seriously.
Thank you very much.